Assad was an Alawite. I think like 12 to 14% of the country is Alawite. Sort of a classic colonial, put a minority sect in charge setup so they oppress everybody else. But their message was always to all minority groups that if, essentially a Sunni Islamic caliphate is established across Syria, all of you will be massacred. Christians, Druze, Shia, everyone. That was the Assad narrative, and it was very powerful. And clearly, Giuliani's identified that and is trying to cut against it. Josh Rogan at the Washington Post tweeted today that he interviewed the bishop of Aleppo. He told me his community members are safe and give Syrians credit for being able to live together. He said, don't fall for propaganda that Assad was the protector of Christians. Robert Ford, who was the U.S. ambassador to Syria when we were in government then, has sort of a rule of thumb, which is like, okay, look where the refugees are fleeing to and where they're fleeing from. And clearly you saw millions of people move from Assad-controlled territory to HTS-controlled territory. None of this is like whitewashing their behavior. There's lots of reports of HTS torturing people, arresting journalists or people that criticize them on social media. Clearly they believe in a pretty strict Islamic fundamentalist view of the world.
Nusra Front certainly committed atrocities in the Syrian civil war, and we don't know exactly where this is going. We have to allow some room, not just some. Syrians get to figure this out. It's their country. If there's one thing that I've learned in 13 years is that a bunch of people sitting in Washington or Geneva or Abu Dhabi or Istanbul, they're not going to know Syria as well as Syrians, and they're not going to be able to kind of orchestrate the Syrian politics from abroad, even though they're inevitably going to have some influence. And what you have to allow for is the possibility that a guy like Giuliani may have learned a lot over the course of the last decade and may have sincerely decided that it's a better approach to try to negotiate differences with factions, that ultimately he doesn't want to keep fighting in an endless civil war, so better to treat Christians and Shia and other minority populations well, rather than kind of being in permanent conflict state. At a minimum, it's a good thing that Assad is gone. And now we don't know what's going to happen, and I'm not making predictions about what's going to happen, but we also kind of owe it to the Syrian people to give this a chance and to see there can be a negotiated process